These are, hands down, the best tropes in the fantasy genre. I know what you're thinking. Maxwell, you're biased. But I'm not. Because guess what? Science has decided this time. I did the research. I binged every YouTube ranking video, sifted through every blog post I could find, and probably broke Google a little bit. All for you. And from that rabbit hole of caffeinated research, I have emerged with 7 heavenly fantasy tropes that can turn any book into a banger. The first one's kinda obvious. You know how we as a nation are obsessed with funny cat videos? Well, that doesn't end in our fantasy books. Which is why the first on this list is animal companions. Of course, we love to get our furry friends involved. I think it's just because they bring us so much joy. They can be super funny, super unpredictable, but most importantly, they're super cute too. There's some really creative ways that this trope can be used too. I'm thinking mainly of the His Dark Materials series, where their animal companions, also known as daemons, are actually their lifeline, and if one of them passed on, then so did they. Even better is when this animal is another fantastical creature, like a dragon, because who wouldn't want a giant fire-breathing lizard at their beck and call? Alright, let's talk about a trope that's less fluffy animal sidekick and more big, life-changing emotional roller coaster. I'm talking about the coming of age trope. You've seen it 1,000 times in fantasy. Harry Potter, the Lightbringer series, the Wheel of Time, heck, even A Song of Ice and Fire has its fair share of awkward teen moments. We know how this goes. You're sitting there, reading about your heroes making one catastrophic decision after another, face-palming so hard you could probably give yourself a concussion. But then, when they finally figure their crap out, that moment, oh boy, pure, unadulterated joy. This next one can be hard to digest, because while we love watching our heroes struggle against conflict, we also secretly want them to succeed. But what makes us want them to succeed more is when they've clearly had a difficult life. And what's worse than having a dead relative? Which is why dead relative is the name of our next heavenly trope. Sure, we might like them if they've saved all the cats from trees and donated all of their money to charity, but give them a dead Aunt Agatha and we will love and support them till their last dying breath. The opposite applies too. They could be a grumpy old man who spits on street urchins, but when we find out that their wife passed away during the winter, there's just a little part of us that feels sorry for them. Water, earth, fire, air. Since the beginning of time, or at least since cavemen started doodling stick figures and fire emojis on walls, humans have been obsessed with these 4 elements. It could be shooting fire from their hands or throwing rocks as projectiles. Maybe they've got a weapon that allows them to manipulate the elements, or they could have been born with their abilities. Either way, toss some elemental magic into your story and readers will slurp it up like a toddler with a Capri Sun. If I was to tell you about a character who's done some pretty shady things in their past, I bet it would pique your interest. Maybe they betrayed their BFF by doing the horizontal tango with their wife. Maybe they stole a millionaire's trust fund, or heck, maybe they even went full-on arsonist and turned an entire civilization into a smoldering mess. Whatever level of dumpster-fire decision-making they've hit, we're all here for it. Why? Because flawed characters make us feel all warm and fuzzy. Like, look! They're just as trashy as me, except worse. And in the grand hierarchy of superiority, that makes us feel kinda awesome, right? But you know what's even better than their guilt-laden shenanigans? Watching them try to clear up their hot mess of a life. That's right, folks. It's the redemption arc. The best redemption arcs are like emotional gymnastics. External goals, internal struggles, and a whole lot of why am I crying over this train wreck of a human? It gives us hope that even the worst of us, or you know, them, can rise from the ashes like a morally confused phoenix. You know that bit when the Chosen One finally uses their powers to save the day? You remember that triumphant whoosh that ripples through you as you shout out loud, "Heck yeah!" It's the ultimate power fantasy, right? But let's be real, none of that fist-pumping glory would happen without a very special ingredient. And no, I'm not talking about the big explodey final fight scene. Don't get me wrong, I love a good final battle. Stakes higher than my caffeine level after a triple espresso, explosive showdowns, all that jazz. But sometimes all we really need is a pit stop, a breather. That's why this one is training moments, the unsung heroes of storytelling. Because let's face it, If your babyface chosen one suddenly whips out superpowers they've never practiced, we're all side-eyeing the page like,
"Excuse me, sir, where is the montage?"
And why do we love this stuff? We've all been there. My friend had a piano teacher who used to smack his knuckles every time he hit the wrong chord. My aunt had a Zumba teacher who would scream,
"Feel the rhythm,"
every time she stepped out of place. And I had a driving instructor who used to cling onto the door handle like his life depended on it, screaming, "Let me out!" every time I approached a roundabout. That's a fact, by the way. But here's the thing. When you finally nail it, whether it's parallel parking, rocking out to the right beat, or mastering a fireball, those moments are made all the sweeter by the awkward steps that it took to get there. I really have left the best till last, and this one comes up time and again, and I've very rarely seen it done wrong. Nothing hits harder than a group of misfits that decide to get together and say, "Hey, I'm gonna stick with you guys, because you're less annoying than most." It's like assembling the Avengers, but instead you've got a sarcastic rogue, an ex-assassin with trust issues, and maybe even a cinnamon roll healer who just wants everyone to stop shouting for 5 minutes. Oh, and don't forget the grumpy mentor, who pretends not to care but would 100% die for the group by chapter 20. If you haven't already guessed, we're talking about the found family trope. Why is it so great? Because it's us, okay? Real life family is messy, but the family you choose, that's where the real magic happens. I've never seen use of the found family trope fail, but if you're a new reader, you might be wondering where you can find all these tropes in action. What are the best books to get you started on your path as a fantasy reader? Look no further, because I did the research, so don't forget to check out this video next, where I reveal the top 10 fantasy books that have been recommended if you want to get started in the genre.